Welcome, everyone, to the Pick Six Podcast, where we discuss the biggest stories in college football. I'm your host, Chris Chang, and guys, it's the first one of the year. We've got a mundane Monday. It's not a victory Sunday, not a victory Monday. It's brutal out here in these streets, guys. I am struggling to get to this show, talk about Friday night's game. Didn't even want to talk about it on Saturday. Wanted to maybe watch some football. Didn't even want to talk about it Sunday. Um, man. Damn, that sucks. This really sucks. I'm not here to sugarcoat a damn thing or even say, there's a whole season ahead of us, guys. We've got so much ahead of us. And yes, that's true. But I mean, we got to get into this and we got to talk about like just all the crappy things that happen on Friday night. Obviously, for those of you who have been living under a rock, Miami lost to Louisville 24-21 in what felt like a 42-17 blowout, but luckily it was not that. Just terrible. Just overall looking at the game, it was just a terrible, terrible performance. I mean, from head coach to the damn equipment manager. I mean, unless your name was Malachi Tony, you played like trash. Just it was a top to bottom abject failure of the program. I mean, everything that could have possibly went wrong. We witnessed it. I am still to this day. I've watched the highlights, the condensed game. Haven't watched the full game yet. I don't think I can bring myself to that yet. But I am struggling to find a silver lining from Friday night's loss. There's just that's nothing. What can we do? I mean, it's almost, one of those games that you throw out, but it's also one of those games where if you're like, okay, well, we got to find something positive in it. Okay, let's take note of everything we did. Don't do any of that. Let that be a checklist of what not to do ever again. I don't care that this is our first conference loss or our first loss. I expected that. I just think the way we lost, I didn't expect us to lose the way we did. I didn't expect it to come to this team or this early. Um, but that could be something positive. We'll talk about that later at the end of the show. But what I do care about, what I do think is absolutely as important, what's hitting me the hardest on this Monday, besides being stuck at home with 2 out of my 3 crotch goblins, because they had the day off from school today, and I've been with them all day. Um, don't have kids. Is that we're just not in control of our destiny anymore. Just like last year, that was the end of the year. That also came after 2 brutal losses. Two actually, now that I think about those losses in retrospect, those were actually 2 pretty good teams. So, and Louisville's a great team, by the way. Let, let's just state it. Louisville came. They played their hearts out. They wanted it more. Their coaches wanted it more. This meant more to them. They played lights out. Do I think they're a better team than us now? No. I still think we have the better players. I think we have the better team. I just think, which we'll get into in a few minutes, we just came out flat. We didn't want it. We thought we could rest on our laurels, and we saw what happened. And so, again, what bothers me the most reflecting on this game on Monday morning is the fact that we're probably not going to make it to the ACC championship. You've got Georgia Tech, who is undefeated and number 7. But more importantly, they only play Syracuse, NC State, Boston College, and Pitt in ACC play, with maybe NC State and maybe Pitt giving them the only challenge, punching their ticket to the ACC championship. And then you have Virginia, who's undefeated as well. And what's left on their slate is North Carolina, Cal, Wake Forest, Duke, and Virginia Tech. Again, I don't see them losing. I said the same thing about us. Look at us today. Look at you now, right? Look at you now. I know I thought we were going to win, and we didn't. And so I could be wrong about the ACC, but something tells me I'm not. And it's looking a little rough for our Canes. But it is the ACC, and the ACC will absolutely ACC. So fingers crossed for that. The only thing that sucks is that Louisville will need to lose one more game. Louisville needs to lose one more game, and they still have, let's see who they have on their schedule really quick. Virginia Tech, Boston College, California, Clemson, maybe? Maybe. I don't think they'll lose to SMU, and that's it, man. That's their ACC schedule. So we are, to say the least, we are behind the eight ball. The one positive is that almost every game minus SMU, we only are favored by there's a 64.6% chance we'll win. Every other game we are favored by 70% or more. So we are high favorites going into the game. So let's just kind of dissect it in a broad sense. I'm not going to get too nitty gritty into this. This game was what it was. It was ugly as hell. Why did we lose? First and foremost, it was flat. We came out flat. It was a piss poor performance. All around. If you had a U on your helmet again and your name was not Malachi Tony, you absolutely played like trash. You played like trash. I mean, from top to bottom, no one played good. You could say, oh, but Chris, the defense held them to 24 points. I don't even need, if you watched that game, you damn well know our defense did not play good or did not play at least to their capabilities. Offense, obviously, did not play good. 4 interceptions, uncalled for. So, top to bottom, don't care who you are. Don't care how much Heisman hopeful stuff that you've been tied to. I don't care how you lead in your position. It was a terrible performance, top to bottom. Second, costly penalties, undisciplined play. I don't know how we played so clean against Notre Dame in the opener, which that's normally your first few games is usually where you kind of are a little rusty or a little undisciplined. You're like, all right, I got to get my thing clean. And penalties, again, are starting as the season goes on to start to rack up. And the worst part is I don't mind getting penalized here and there. I understand it. That's part of the game. Very few teams, and I mean very few, I mean almost none, ever play a completely clean, perfect game. But this is, I mean, we are not only getting penalties, they are costly. They are coming at the worst time ever. I mean, there's the one by Francis Maui-Noah. I think it was for holding or unnecessary roughness was one of the two. And it literally put us back like 2nd and 25, and we just couldn't make up for that. And I'm not understanding why we're making these costly penalties. I mean, again, Miami has never been a clean team. It's not like we're known for having low penalties, but again, I know Mario's new thing is let's move on. We're moving to the future. We're not going to the teams of the past. Okay, well then let's clean up our act. We cannot be getting penalized. We cannot be trying to start drives, second or first and 25 or first and 20. It's you're never going to get anywhere with like that. Next, poor tackling. I mean, we literally were on top of folks and they were just breaking our tackles like it was nothing. We might as, I mean, no offense, we might as well have been Temple or Middle Tennessee State. Like we did not look like a P4, a conference favorite. We looked like a bottom of the barrel team with our tackling. I mean, and no offense to Louisville, but Louisville's not known for having giants on their team, or as it's been said, creatures on our team. What happened to our creatures? I don't know. Next, let's just call the elephant in the room: the 4 interceptions. This has been made the headline and the reason why we lost, and it's obviously an unavoidable fact. Yes, the 4 turnovers cost us, obviously, especially that last one. But it wasn't the only problem, as you can see, and we'll go through this and we'll get through this more. And then last, but this is the most important, and it's probably the scariest fact of why we lost. We got outcoached. We got outcoached. And not just Mario, by the way. Shannon Dawson, Corey Heatherman. Both those guys look like graduate assistants compared to Louisville's coaches. I don't know. And again, both teams had bye weeks, so it's not like we were coming off and we had this short week. It's not like, I mean, they had a bye week as well. It's just inexcusable. I mean, neither coordinator could adjust to the adversity, and we're going to talk about adversity in this episode, but there were zero, or let me take that back. It felt like there was a minimal amount of adjustments made given what we were facing. And it feels like the adversity was too much and too heavy for our coaching staff to handle. And that is a massive, massive red flag as we head into the rest of this season. Um, I think also like another thing that I want to state before we go any further into this is I'm obviously just a fan who's watched college football for the better part of half of his life. I don't get paid. I don't do this for a living. I've never coached a day in my life. But I feel like if I'm pointing these things out, you as a person who's getting paid six figures or seven figures need to figure this out. It just is what it is, right? And I don't care whether you've been doing this for 30 years, whether you've been doing this for 15 years, 10 years, whatever the case may be. The number one thing we can't allow is we can't allow pride to get in the way. And I feel like that is what killed us. I feel like the pride in this program, again, top to bottom, this goes from head coach to equipment manager. Sorry, guys in the equipment room. I know it's not your fault, but I just want to make sure everyone's covered, all bases are covered. We did not play good. And I am not sure again if the coaches are just so stubborn they don't want to change, or they know that what they're doing is their best shot and they've just seen all the other options and know it ain't gonna happen. It ain't gonna happen. Let's jump into the offense really quick. I think one of the greatest lessons we are learning this season, and the greatest lesson we learned in this game, probably, and we've known this, that Carson Beck is not Cam Ward. He's never going to be Cam Ward. We can't expect him. I said that from the get. I've been saying it all season. I've been alluding to it. The game needs to be approached like that. We cannot have any sort of game plan that centers around Carson Beck or has to lean on Carson Beck throwing the ball. That's not who he is. That's what Georgia did last year. And it was, again, an abject failure for them as an entire season. If we do that, we will fall right back into history and we will see history repeat itself. He is not meant to save games. I'm not saying he's a bad player. It's just that's not what his strong suit is. Cam Ward, that was his strong suit. Cam Ward was never a game manager. Cam Ward wanted to go out there, sling it, do his thing, let him take control, give him full autonomy. He will take you to the promised land. And he did 9.5 times out of 10, right? Carson Beck's not that guy. That's okay. That doesn't make him a bad player again. But if your game plan requires Carson Beck to play even at a elite level the whole game through, it's not realistic, man. I'm not saying Carson Beck's not an elite quarterback. I think he is. But he's an elite quarterback when the game doesn't have to go through him. When he has to facilitate a game, lights out. I think he can do that. I think it's easy. But we're seeing with this offense, and we thought FSU was a great, example of how versatile and balanced, you're hearing a lot in the media, this team is. I think we're also seeing the opposite side of that coin in the Louisville game. If the Florida State game showed us how balanced we are, this game showed us how, what's the word I'm looking for? How weak we can possibly be, or how threatening it can be when we have to do that. Because here's the thing. We could not run the ball at all. Our O-line couldn't get a push at all. There was running the ball. Now, pass protection, slightly better. Not perfect, not the best all season, but slightly better. Carson Beck had, I would say on average, just as much time in this game as he did in every other game. The issue was the push. We could not get the push. Again, we couldn't run the ball. Because we can't get that push, we're obviously not going to be able to run the ball. And I want to be very explicit when I say when we couldn't run the ball. We couldn't run the ball up the middle, right? And we saw that with FSU. We saw that briefly, I think, with Notre Dame at times, and Florida not as much, but at times we got to start running the ball to the outside. We've got guys. It's not like, again, between Pringle and Lyle, I think you can easily get to the outside. There's just no reason for it. I mean, both those guys are speedsters. Why are we not running to why are we not accessing that? Again, I'm going to go back to saying I know I'm not a coach, and my assumption is that the coaches are putting the best game plan and the best thing they have on the field, but then show us. Give us two or three plays. Give us two or three drives where you're attempting to go outside of the tackles. The fact that you're not going outside of the tackles is lunacy to me. It's like, again, the pride, right? Where it's just like, well, we're bigger and we're stronger and we're more talented. We should be able to run the ball up the middle. No, you're not. It's like the meme. No, you're not. No, you're not. And that's what Louisville told us. No, you're not. You're not going to run it up the middle. It ain't going to happen. And what really kind of like really upsets me is why weren't we playing their game? So both teams have stout D lines, right? And I'll get a little bit deeper into this later on, but like you quickly saw more Moss just easily get to the outside, run the ball to the outside, run outside the tackles with success. Do that. Shannon Dawson, I alluded to it last week. Every week seems to be taking a play from his opponent's playbook, but just couldn't see that this week. I don't understand it. I think also just to mention, Miller Moss. I mean, he was 23 for 37, so it's not like, and then Carson Beck was 25 for 35. It's not like these two quarterbacks were completely like outclassing each other. No, very similar. Even to the yardage. Miller Moss had 248. Carson Beck had 271. Again, not terrible numbers. Where we get into the terrible numbers is the 4 interceptions, right? Carson Beck was inconsistent in every aspect, from pass accuracy to checks to play to decision making, everything. I mean, again, that's why at the end of this, we'll talk about like, where do we go from here? Could this be an isolated incident? I'd like to believe so. I'm hoping so. Um, I understand players are going to have bad games at least once a season. I get that. Not against that. Kind of thought that was our FSU game. And part of our Florida game. But now we're starting to see some habits. And we're starting to see some things that I think were maybe masked by fluke results or lucky attempts at things. But Carson Beck just didn't look good, and not only did Carson Beck not look good, but the wide receivers couldn't get space for anything. I don't know whether there was a cheat code that was placed on that was like the glue cheat code for Louisville's secondary, but I mean, midway through the second quarter, I just started focusing more on the Louisville secondary, and they seemed to have everything covered. And then even when they went to a zone, their players were exactly where they needed to be. And so again, that's why I say from top to bottom, abject failure for everyone on board. Wide receivers should have done more to get open to make Carson Beck's life easier. I thought our play calling, again, going to Shannon Dawson, I'm not going to just blame the players. The coach is just as much to blame, if not the most. And if I'm being honest, the more I think about it and the more I go through it, I blame the coaches more than the talent on the field, just because, which we'll get into with the defense, it seems coaching was absolutely a malpractice issue this week. I thought our offense was extremely vanilla, extremely predictable. I'll give Shannon Dawson credit with the Malachi Tony 2-point conversion pass play. Again, the guy literally won a state championship in Florida, one of the hardest states to win a state championship in, as the quarterback. I'm not understanding why we're not using these type of plays. These should be normal. These should be, oh, watch out for Malachi Tony. Oh, we got a trip set. Oh, we got Malachi Tony on an island by himself. Watch out for that. It's like, I just, again, what are we doing? What are we doing? And then why are we not again, I want to go back really quick with the offense. Why are we not copying them? Like, if you see your opponent has a very similar challenge as you in terms of overcoming a stout defensive line and a good defense, why don't you do the same thing? So it's like we made zero efforts to get to the outside, not until the end of the game. When it really garbage time didn't really matter, and then on top of that, they were able to dial that in. Again, we're sitting here running up the middle for no reason to just prove a point that we have better linemen, and it's like, okay, cool, you have better linemen. Then you can go back to that in the fourth quarter. You can go back to that in garbage time. But when the game is on the line and it's a close game, you and momentum. I didn't even have this in my notes, so I'm gonna go a little off key here, but momentum, I can't even begin to describe how one-sided of an affair it was. That's why I alluded. I said, it was 24-21. It really felt like 45-17. I mean, going especially into the fourth quarter, I felt like we were down like 3 scores. And you could just sense that like Louisville wanted it more. They wanted to win this game, and they not only do they want to, I honestly believe they came into this game knowing they were going to win. They said, no, they're going to have to pry it out of our dead hands. And we were just like, nah, it's Louisville. We can run with them. I mean, we were in a shootout with them last year, and our defense was terrible. Our defense is 10 times better this year. Why would we not be able to run with them? Again, pride, arrogance, it killed us. Another thing about the offense, why didn't we lean on our athletes? Some of our most successful drives were determined because we were letting our athletes out athlete them. Whether it was a quick bubble screen to Malachi Tony or CJ Daniels, like these, like lean on that. There's no reason that like, if the game plan you had is not working, you need to throw that out. Like immediately throw it out and have a backup, like batshit crazy game plan that you're like, you know what? This is what we call the wacky wakoodles. I don't know. Give it some random name. I don't care. But you've got to just break the monotony. It's not going to be run, pass, run, pass. You've got to switch it up. And then also when you're drawing up these pass plays, it doesn't take a genius to understand that clearly the elbow surgery has hindered Carson Beck's play. Like, there's obviously, and again, I don't even know if I can really remember, maybe before the injury or maybe the 23 year he had some heat on his arm, but I never looked at Carson Beck as a guy who had a cannon for an arm. Great game manager, great game day quarterback, great touch. Don't remember him having a cannon. I don't remember that being an attribute where we were like, oh yeah, Carson Beck, watch out for him. He's got a cannon. Why are we relying on these two deep plays? And then on top of that, again, going back to the arrogance. And I get it. You want to try and build some confidence in your players by just saying, hey, the look didn't look good before, but if we just change this here, we can get it. No. And I just, everyone could see it. Everyone. I don't think there was a person I was around, the second interception into triple coverage nonetheless. It was like, no, there's no need. And again, I know we alluded to it last week. I'm like, oh, maybe we're stretching it. No, maybe there's a reason why we don't stretch it. And I'm fine with that. I'm not against that. I want our players to play within the best sandbox that's best for them. I don't want to ask we have good players. And I think our coaches know that we have great players, but it's these decisions to make these plays that I just, again, casual, I'm not a casual, slightly more than casual fan can pick out. You as a coach, I feel like we've got it. We've got to get back to like, okay, what do we do well? And if that's not working, how do we get to that in another avenue? Because again, the game is just simply one of two things. You're either running the ball or you're passing the ball, right? And it's up to you to get creative how you do those things. Okay. Just change the way. You know what I mean? I don't understand why. I don't understand why we're making these decisions. And then on top of that, speaking of decisions, I don't understand. Again, I want to believe coaches are only putting their best players out there. They're only putting the players that they feel the most confidence in to execute the game plan that they have drawn up. Again, I understand that. I also understand that we have really good players like in JoJo Trader and Nikar and Joshua Moore. They're not maybe as good as CJ Daniels and as Malachi Tony. Maybe not as reliable. I understand that. Mix it up. You got to mix it up. Give Louisville a different look. I just we do it with the run game when we bring in Lyle or we bring in Pringle. Why are we not doing that? And what's worrisome to me is, you know, the offense was only able to get 63 yards rushing the entire game. If you're noticing that, I think it was even like only like 30 yards in the first half. Wouldn't you just switch that up at halftime and go, okay, this way of running not working. We're gonna do some pitches. We're gonna do some, options. Again, we know Carson Beck is not Michael Vick, but we also know Carson Beck is not the Statue of Liberty. He can move, and they even tried that one time and he got blasted. It was clearly not the play for him. But then you pitch it. Something different. Again, like this is something that gamers do, right? Like a gamer will play NCAA, and if they're playing an opponent and they see it, they'll just pick a random play and then just say, "Hey, I'm gonna try and outplay you." And we didn't do that. And again, I blame Shannon Dawson. I blame the game plan he had. I think again, it worked against Florida. It worked against Florida State. But let's keep it a buck. Those are two terrible programs. Those are two programs that will never see the college football playoff this year. There was never a chance they were going to see the college football playoff this year. You've got to do better. What got us to where we are is not going to get us to where we want to be. And it's as simple as that. The defensive side of the ball, holy crap. The defense couldn't stop a bloody nose with a roll of paper towels. And I know, again, someone will say, oh, Chris, you don't know ball. They held him to 24 points. No, I know ball. I've watched. And I watched a team get gutted. Gutted. I watched smaller linemen push one of the number one D lines in the country. Now, I get it. Something was off on the defense, specifically the D line. Hakeem Mesidor was limping everywhere. Something was wrong with his ankle, his leg. I don't know what it was, but he was definitely only maybe, I would say, max operating at 60%. You could see it in the effort. You could see it between plays, And that was another thing, too. The malaise of every player between plays, just hands on hips. All right, I'm getting over here. All right, just light jog. Wasn't fire, especially on the defense. And that is completely inexcusable. Those are dogs. Those are just like when you looked at the end of the FSU game, um, you saw Ruben Baines sitting on the bench after the FSU game, just heated. I want that. That should have been the entire game. Chris Bell was targeted almost every third down. Every third down, Chris Bell. Almost every single one I counted. He was the target. You can't draw anything up. Stop that. I'm lost. I mean, the other thing, there was this thing that the O-line was doing, and I noticed it on a few plays. It was really blatant, where you would see these holes, and they weren't holes that were almost naturally designed. They knew that our linemen were going to rush a certain gap, and so they would allow them to come through in that gap while exposing an opening for another end. And they would say, "Hey, like we're not going to run through the A gap. We'll just run through the B gap because they're gonna over effort, pass our linemen, pass our running back through the A gap. Boom, go to the C. Shoot, we'll go outside the tackle." And then there was one play that they did 2 times in the same drive. This like little like sweep, like not sweep, but this little run to the right side and then you could just see like there was like a movement of the line just woo right out of the way. Never seen that this year. What happened? Again, I'm sure we'll probably get more word. Something will come out at the end of the season. Someone was injured. There was, I don't know. I think also, again, going back to the Louisville out coaching us, I'm an idiot. I'm okay with that. Been an idiot my whole life. Okay. I was convinced there was no way that O line was going to be able to compete with our D line. And they didn't have to because Miller Moss was getting the ball out in less than 2.5 seconds every throw. He only threw it on average. The average length of his throws were only 4.9 yards. That was and they had like I think 8 screens, right? But here's the just cardinal sin of it all. 191 yak yards after catch. That's again going back to the missed tackles. That is a death sentence. It is your team will always lose. If you tell me a team is going to have almost 200 yards in yak, sorry, I'm just gonna be like, okay, well, how bad do they blow them out? Because that's never going to you're never going to like you're not going to stop a team like that. Especially when their average throw is 4.9. 4.9 yards. That's unexcusable. Unexcusable. And I think what the craziest thing is that Louisville took our strongest weapon, which was our D line, and neutralized it by getting rid of that ball and doing that and getting it to the outside, running to the outside. It was like, okay, if that is your strongest weapon, we want to remove that and get that off the table. And they did. They did. I felt like Miller Moss's jersey was probably one of the cleanest opposing quarterback jerseys we've seen all year. I mean, there wasn't a drive that I felt that um, Louisville wasn't going to score. I mean, you look at their first 2 drives in the first quarter, touchdown. They punted all through the second, which was great. Field goal punt in the third, and then a touchdown, and then the fumble and the punt. I mean, again, we can sit here and we can rest on our laurels and say, yeah, the defense held them to 24 points. That's great. Let's look at time of possession really quick. I don't even see where is this team stats because this is really important. Yeah, 31 minutes to 28 minutes. It's not super, but you win the time of possession. You win the turnover battle. You get 200 yards in yak. What are we expecting? What are we doing here? What are we? Again, all the things that could have possibly go wrong went wrong. And then this is the last thing I'll say about the defense, and this was just something that really was concerning about me. I didn't notice this at the game. Didn't see this online till probably I want to say Sunday. But apparently everyone looked lost and were lost. And there are reports coming out that a lot of the players were coming back to the sidelines after each drive saying we're not making plays because we've never seen any of this. They're doing things we've never seen. And again, credit to Louisville and their coaching staff for coming prepared, being ready for us. We were not. And it bit us in the butt. But where do we go from here? Right? That's important. We got to talk about where do we go from here? We obviously got to clean all this stuff up. Penalties, poor tackling. Those are simple things you can again, I'm going to excuse poor tackling and the interceptions, like I said, to just this is an isolated incident. We're going to see, right? We need to get out of our own way. I mean, this team, it seems to me, specifically when I say this team, I'm directing this more towards the coaching staff. This team plays with an arrogance, and it's not going to work. You can't rest on your laurels. You can't believe because you have more athletes, because you have bigger athletes, that you're going to win the game. That is literally your job as a coach. And Brahm knew that. He was like, okay, I just need to figure out how to use my players to the best of their abilities and exploit Miami's weaknesses. And they did. We did not do that. We need to change that. Um, and because of that, coaching needs to take a very long look in the mirror. Very long. And again, this is not just direct towards Mario. This is both for Corey Heatherman and Shannon Dawson. Um, and I'm not sure whether people need more freedom or they need less, and we need to put fire under their butts. But something's got to change. And another critique of the defense that I've heard people say is that Miami's defense is very vanilla. It's very plain. It's very basic. It doesn't require, and I'm not against that. I'm fine with that. But then you have to sprinkle something in. You gotta get some confusing looks in there, some switches, maybe a stunt here or there. Not every freaking play needs to have a stunt or a trick in it, but I think you've got to switch up looks and you've got to keep offensive lines and quarterbacks on their toes. And if you don't, you're going to be in trouble. And I had alluded earlier to adversity, that word adversity. I think there's some things we need to watch out for the rest of the season. Was this an isolated incident, or was this the first domino to fall and we're going to see more of this moving forward? I look at the struggle with FSU, specifically in that second half, and it seems to me that condition has bled over into this game. It was very similar. There was a malaise. There was a lack of interest. There was a, we'll figure it out. I mean, what was on paper, we're supposed to win, right? It's not going to work. It's not going to work. And it never will. From this year, from this game on out, I will not have that confidence. I failed you as a host of this show. I have given you bad and false information. This team can lose. And Louisville has given you the blueprint, has given every team ahead of us, ahead of us on the schedule, that blueprint. This is how you beat Miami. Again, how do we respond? Um, I also wonder, is this offense built to come back? Are we built for adversity? Um, the only time we were down this season for the first time was against FSU. It was down 3. We came back, luckily. This game didn't lead at all. Not a second of the game was we led the game. Not good. Not good. Um, we need to figure out, is this defense only good if it's ahead, or is this a or is this offense an offense that can play from behind? And I really would like to see that. I think we can. Um, Another question and something to look out for is are we seeing the real Carson Beck now? Where teams maybe just unsure of what Carson Beck could do the first couple games of the year, and now they're kind of seeing some of his behaviors and his habits, and they're like, okay, this is how we can really put him in uncomfortable situations and make him make bad decisions. Or again, is this an isolated incident? I think that's one of the most important questions coming out of this game is this an albatross or a red flag, or is this just an isolated incident and we're going to get our stuff together and keep it moving, right? The last thing I want to leave you with, and it's probably a reach, but I would like to end this with something positive, and that is, was losing this game the best case scenario? So we talked about it, right? We knew we would probably lose one game. If you watched our season preview, we said we would probably lose one game. Again, I didn't think it would be this early. I didn't think it would be against this team under these circumstances, the way it is. But it is. It's here. We lost in a surprising fashion, which I knew we would at some point this year. Just thought it would be in Blacksburg or in Pittsburgh. But is this the best case scenario, right? Does this loss, I'm going to try and, again, put some lipstick on a pig, but now that we have this loss now, this gives us time to retool, work out some kinks. It's not like we're working towards the end of the season where we can maybe be eliminated from the playoff or the ACC, which we kind of are, and it kind of upsets me. I'll get to that in a second, but focusing on the retooling and fixing our problems, this, because it's in the middle of the season, allows us to go back to the shed and sharpen some things. This also gives us time because, again, I think our schedule is still extremely manageable. I still think we're favorites in every game. I still think we will win every game moving forward. I also don't think we won't lose. I think that's still a very strong possibility. But this allows us to move up in the rankings, right? And as other teams get deeper into conference play, we could see teams ahead of us fall. So, not to say that we'll get back to number 2 like we were. I think that is basically out the door. But can we get back into a top 4? Can we get into a home field advantage position for the playoffs? Yes. And here's the silver lining that I'm not just going to be pulling this out of my ass. This is something that I'm like, okay, let's look at this. Let's look. We alluded to Virginia and Georgia Tech being undefeated, Louisville having the head-to-head, right? Was losing this game the best case scenario because it keeps us out of the ACC championship. Now, I know you're thinking that sounds like loser mentality. Hear me out really quick. Let's just say we don't have to play that ACC game because remember, we're going to be now from Louisville. This is it. By the way, this is the first stop on a long road trip we've got going on, right? We've got 6 weeks, excuse me, 6 weeks of straight games, no breaks. Imagine we play those 6 games, then we have to go to the ACC championship. We have to play that game. Then we'd have to go maybe get a week or 2 off, get a first round bye, if that. Or let's just say, God forbid, we made it to the ACC championship game, but we lost, right? So we still would have to play the first round. That's like 2 or 3 extra games we're actually adding onto the season. Whereas, let's just say we miss the ACC championship game, we get an extra 3 weeks to rest, get that first home field advantage, first round game, and then we can go make a deep run into the playoffs. That's what happened to Ohio State last year. Granted, they lost at a different time. But we saw it actually benefited them over a team like Oregon, who basically went undefeated the whole season, won the conference championship game, and then lost in the quarterfinals in their first showing. So I still think there's a lot of good that can come out of this. I don't think this game was anything that I could be like, oh, we did the good here. I don't think there was anything good done in this game, to be honest with you. I think it's a great example of what not to do. My hope is that no one can use this game moving forward, because if they do, it's going to be a very long and arduous road this season, and we are going to absolutely be set up for disappointment. But again, I am wondering now if this loss can help us retool, refocus, get us back on track. It allows other teams that are ahead of us now, as they get deeper into conference play, to lose. And it may, while we may get left out, and I'm being honest with you, I think we are. Barring some cataclysmic event, which this was, again, I know I'm an idiot. I admit it. I'm an idiot. I picked the wrong team. The exact opposite thing of what I said was going to happen happened. I get it. But barring a cataclysmic event, I just don't see us making the ACC championship game. But that could play into our favor, just like it did for Ohio State last year. And we could be refreshed and ready to go in the playoffs. What do you say? What do you think? We are at the end of another episode, guys. It wasn't the most fun. It wasn't the best. But we've got to talk about Billy Napier getting fired, Mike Norvell getting possibly half fired. I don't know. And then all the craziness that happened this week. I'm going to come back with another episode midweek to kind of talk about that, because I mean, it was the greatest part about this weekend. Let me just say this really quick is I was genuinely, as I woke up on Saturday, in utter worry that this was going to be just on the news cycle all week. The Hurricanes lose, drop it. Luckily, Florida State did what they do, and UF did what the Gators do, and so they took all of that brunt and all that media attention. And then you add in other teams, Ole Miss losing to Georgia, Alabama continuing to thump and do their thing. A lot of attention going to other places. I like that. Be good, y'all. Win this week. Hopefully, I'll see you guys for a midweek and a week 9 preview. We'll see you guys next time. Love y'all. Be good. And as always, go Canes.